Shakari. The source. Heaven. Eden. Call it what you will. The Klingons call it Kuitu. To the Romulans, it's Vortavor. The Andorian word is unpronounceable. Still, every culture in existence shares this common dream of a place from which creation sprang. For us, that place will soon be reality.
One of your earth emotions.
Glad I found you.
Let's get married.
Delete the wife.
Welcome back to Deep Space Love, the Star Trek podcast where a married Trekkie couple explore love in all its forms throughout the final frontier. I'm Nicole, one of your hosts, and laughing at me is...
Joe, one of your other hosts. I love being a Treckle couple.
Oh, man. It's the end of the day, to be fair.
Yeah, fair.
When we're recording this in the middle of the week. It's a long one. Last week of summer.
How's it going?
I'm losing track of the days. I'm really excited for it to be the weekend, but otherwise, pretty good. We just spent some time at the Minnesota State Fair this last weekend, which was always fun. What's your favorite part of the fair, Joe?
Beers. There's lots of weird, anyone who's not familiar with it, there's a lot of weird beers. Yeah.
Experimental.
Okay, well, mustard beer?
Okay, that was too experimental for me.
Okay. I liked it, kind of. It felt like...
But not all are, like, weird has a certain connotation to it.
I guess now it does, yeah, for sure. But interesting and unique beers, we'll say that.
Yeah.
I like that. With like blueberry pancake lager, some like tropical passion fruit IPAs, like ones that you don't normally get in lots of places. It's breweries will kind of put out their they'll go out of their way to do something out of the box, we'll say. That's always fun to go find those.
That goes for food too.
Yeah. What's your favorite part?
Probably the food, actually.
What was your favorite food?
You know what? The Herbivorous Butcher, a vegan, I guess in quotation, butcher shop here in the Twin Cities, is one of the vendors. And they had this kind of mochi dough, kind of hamburger ball. I'm not making it sound right, but I know some people maybe didn't like it. I've seen some reviews, but I really enjoyed that. That was a new food this year that I really enjoyed. But I also just like a lot of the classics, like fresh cheese curds and fried pickles and all that.
All good stuff. Yeah, I really
like the Nordic waffles.
Nordic waffles
Love
are good.
Nordic waffles. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we could go on. But
yeah, State Fair is fun.
Yeah, if you've never been to the Minnesota State Fair, there's a few days left if you're nearby. Otherwise, come join us next August.
Yeah.
All right, Joe, what are we talking about today?
We actually kind of have a fun, exciting episode. It's a little out of the box also for our norm. We're actually chatting with Laurence Luckinbill, kind of in celebration of the release of his recent autobiography, as well as the 35th anniversary of Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. We talk a lot about his role as Sybok, but we talk about some other things too.
Yeah, we got the chance to speak with Sybok himself. Besides appearing in Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, Laurence is an accomplished actor, especially on stage. He's a Tony-nominated actor, and he's performed multiple solo plays of big names in history, including Ernest Hemingway and Lyndon Johnson. In fact, I think it's the Lyndon Johnson solo act that I think Shatner had seen, and was why one large reason why he reached out to Laurence to be in the film.
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah. So we do have that interview coming up. Before we dig into that, though, I actually have a decent-sized Trek check for you.
Yes, please continue.
Yeah, since the last time that we recorded, the last recording was like the weekend before, the day before San Diego Comic Con, and that weekend, a whole lot of news came out, and it was pretty interesting. So one of the couple big ones we heard, Lower Decks is getting the final season has a premiere date. It's October 24th, so that'll be coming up. We got a trailer for Section 31, the film following Giorgio. What'd you think of that?
I'm excited. I think it's going to be. It's kind of fun to have like Trek in a movie format again. I think we originally thought that might be a show, but I think that this might be the best format for that story. I don't know. I'm excited. I mean, I just want to see Michelle Yeoh kick ass some more.
Yeah, I think that'll be fun. I think that
On our Discovery episode recently, I did talk about how much I love Giorgio. So
yeah, she's great. Michelle Yeoh is awesome. I think you're absolutely right that it's going to be. I'm glad it's going to be kind of a one and done movie. I don't know, like just the vibe the trailer's getting off. I don't know if I want that as like a whole series, but I think it'll be a fun movie. It seems like a kind of a almost a swashbuckling adventure kind of thing.
yeah.
Yeah, so it could be fun. We also got some interesting casting updates for the Starfleet Academy show. We got they announced that Tig Notaro will be back, Mary Wiseman for sure,
Hell yeah.
and Oded Fair will be back as
Your
Admiral Vance,
your favorite.
my fave. And Robert Picardo is returning to live action Trek, and that was a big one too. That's exciting. So we got some fun news there for Academy. We also got the announcement of a new Star Trek series from Tawny Newsome and Justin Simeon. They're putting together a kind of a half-hour live-action comedy set in the Star Trek universe. The quote about it was, Federation outsiders serving a gleaming resort planet find out their day-to-day exploits are being broadcast to the entire quadrant. So I don't know too much about it, other than it's going to be a comedy and just kind of a new thing for Star Trek to kind of dabble in. I mean, they did that with Lower Decks, but like live action, like half-hour comedy vibe, like I'm into it. I'm excited to see what they can do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just excited to explore more in this universe, in this franchise. So
I think that's one exciting thing that Star Trek's been really doing is just like playing in different sandboxes and like telling different kinds of stories. And maybe it's not a hit for everybody, but like it's just doing something different and it's fun.
that series would definitely be kind of a little bit of a left turn from what we're typically used to, especially if it's essentially non-Starfleet folks, like planet-based.
Yeah.
Both of those things would be quite different, to say the least.
Quite. And another small piece of news that I just read recently that wasn't at a Comic-Con, but Nicholas Meyer, director of Star Trek II and Star Trek VI, apparently gave a brief update on the progress of his upcoming audio drama that he's making called Star Trek Con City Alpha 5. And he just mentioned that it's still in the works. They're casting and they're hoping to start it, I think, within this year or next year. So I think it sounds, the way he describes it as an audio drama, but I think it's like a podcast series kind of thing would be equated to, like a fictional podcast.
Fun.
Yeah, so that could be interesting. I think he kind of frames it as like this is Khan's story, where Khan is like the protagonist on that planet. I think that he'd wanted to make that as a show a while back, which wasn't really something I was super excited about, but this could be a fun way to explore that in a different medium.
Yeah, I like the use of different mediums. I think also, the idea of like the Section 31 sort of movie that's not necessarily like a feature film. I don't know. It was like doing different things in like different ways, and I think like it allows you to expand on like storytelling options, so you're not boxed into one way or the other. So the idea of being able to branch out is exciting. I don't know if you're done with the Trek check, but I'm just gonna sort of like come in here and mention that it's not necessarily new news anymore, but for us, we just recently finished watching season 2 of Prodigy. So
yeah, that's right.
Now we can talk about that. I guess spoilers for anyone who hasn't finished it yet, but I feel like most people finished it before us, but that's not entirely, I know that's not entirely true. But briefly, Joe, what were your thoughts on that?
Ooh, yeah. I actually did not have that on my Trek check, so I'm glad you popped in with that. I loved it. I thought it was really, really good. The time travel plot, very tight, very clever. The way that they were able to bring some kind of complex scientific ideas or even just like Star Trek ideas and like distill them in a way that's just like digestible for like younger kids, but just really everybody was really clever and awesome. It was like a sneaky sequel to Voyager, which was really fun. Like it kind of started off a little bit like that, but it's like we get Robert Beltran, Robert Picardo are back. Like seeing them, interacting with Kate Mulgrew again, like was just super interesting. We were on the Voyager A for much of it too. So it does that. And I think the way that
Besides some other surprise
there were
faces.
some other surprise faces for sure, and I loved it. Like legacy characters returning, but it ties in with Star Trek Picard. Like throughout the series, you hear a little bit talks about the Romulan evacuation, but the way that it like works in tandem with connecting to the other Trek series like that is just really smart, and I think makes the universe feel like cohesive. And I really appreciate all the work that the creators put into this.
Yeah, agreed on that. The one final thought I gotta say is I just really hope that we'll get a season 3. There's just so much more. This crew has finally like kind of come into their own, I feel like, after these first 2 seasons, and they're in such a good place, which to be fair would be could leave them there, and I wouldn't be like super devastated not knowing some things, but at the same time, I do want more, and I hope we
Right.
get it.
So
So
again,
that's still up in the air.
you did say spoiler, so like the story from season 1 and 2, like the major arc is wrapped up really, but like they set something up where like, yeah, you're right, they can leave it, or they're setting it up for like just a ton of new stories that could be coming from where they're going from here,
Hmm.
and it's right for like a new season, it's right for books, comics, like all of that stuff. Like at the very least, we need some sort of continuation with this crew.
I will say the time travel shenanigans were wild to kind of keep track of. I do feel like they did distill it down at the very end of the series, but for a while I was like, I honestly, it would just be like a crisscrossing of lines, like if I was trying to sit down and figure it out. So that was pretty intense. So I feel like even for kids, that was probably kind of a wild ride. But I don't know, I'm a sucker for time travel, so
Yeah,
it's
time
fun.
travel it was cool. And honestly, this isn't too much of a spoiler because it's earlier in the series, but the introduction of like the loom, the kind of
Oh
like
man,
time eating
those were
creatures,
wild.
the basically the Langoliers of Star Trek.
The Langoliers of Star
Yeah, like
Trek. I think
they
that's what we've
were,
decided.
yeah, they were cool. Like I really like that. Like any, I like creature stuff and like weird,
That's your other podcast.
creature monstery things, and I totally dug that.
My other podcast is a monster podcast.
Yep, it is. T-shirt.
Creature podcast. I feel like oh yes, and the introduction of a new team member, essentially,
Oh
cast
yeah,
member
yep.
with the
Majel.
Majel, the Vulcan.
Yeah, she was great.
It's not really a spoiler.
Yeah,
So
no,
anyway,
that was fun. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. But yeah, no. Anyway, that's our Trek check for today.
Computer, status report.
What the hell was that?
Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome. So before we get to our interview, I know it being the 35th anniversary of Star Trek V, some people are revisiting it. Like articles are writing think pieces, like reevaluating like its place in the franchise and talking about where maybe the flaws a lot get brought up a lot. But I thought it'd be kind of interesting. We rewatched the movie before we interviewed Laurence, and just revisiting it for the first time in a couple of years, I would say. I think that things people don't like about it is endlessly pointed out. But I wanted to ask you, what are a few things that you enjoyed about this movie?
Well, first, Lawrence's performance as Sybok is great. He's very convincing in the role, like to the point where I feel very visceral feelings towards the character throughout the film. And not all like towards the end there. I mean, when he's got that scene where he's kind of confronted with the idea that he was wrong. That's also really powerful. So, hats off to Lawrence's performance as Sybok. And I don't know, maybe I'm stealing this from you, but I mean the scenes, the camping scenes, and when the main three, so to speak, are just hanging out, singing songs around the campfire, poking fun at each other, just in their like mountain clothes or whatever. That's some really special stuff where you just kind of get down to like the characters and their relationships. And it's some of my favorite stuff about Trek ultimately. I mean, I'm attracted to Trek in a lot of ways because of, the sci-fi aspect, because I am a scientist. And so I'd love to kind of geek out about, some of these like high concepts. But ultimately, what keeps me coming back to the franchise, I think, is those relationships and friendships and family and just that community that both in universe and out in the real world. So on that note, what are some of your top things about Star Trek V, Joe?
Wow, thank you for asking. I would agree with you on the big three character moments. I think that they had, I think to be fair, it's a little bit to the detriment of some of the other crew members, which is
Yes.
unfortunate. Like they kind of get the shaft a little bit, but I think that you're absolutely right that those interactions between Kirk, Bones, and Spock were top
Mhm.
tier, like some of the best we get from them. And
Especially, for
yeah,
this crew. I mean, considering in TOS, like
yeah,
the amount of, I didn't always get that. Like, I mean, I feel like there's a rich aspect of that to like newer Trek that isn't necessarily present in TOS. So they got a lot of that here.
exactly, yeah. And there's scenes where they're confronting their pain. The
Oh,
Sybok's like presenting them with their like deepest pains, and really powerful stuff there. Like Kirk's "I need my pain" monologue was fun.
yeah.
And I'll echo the performance too. I think like you're pointing out that the moment when he discovers he's wrong was just a great moment for him as an actor.
Mhm.
I will say other things that I liked. One thing I love in sci-fi is a good space bar. This movie had a great space bar. The
You are a
Nimbus
sucker
3,
for those.
yeah, the planet of galactic peace, just being like a shithole was a fun concept. Where like this idea of this like three, you know, tumultuous relationship between these three races, trying to make a place that's like a neutral spot where they're like, it's a peaceful place and we'll bring people here.
It's not some Eden. It's
Yeah, and
like,
it's not, and it's like just awful. Like that's a fun concept that I actually wish was explored more. But the bar that's in the main bar is a great space bar sequence, and so some fun like neon signs, very late '80s, like Running Man-esque style aesthetics, and I really dug that a lot. So that was a lot of fun. I think that there are of course like some other cool like action bits. I think the core story is very Star Trek at its heart too. This kind of like we need to cross the galactic barrier to find like what was the beginning, what brought us all
yeah.
here, that kind of stuff. And like the way it's presented in a very like televangelist kind of,
Yeah, I was gonna say Star Trek
yeah,
does cult.
a culty way,
Star Trek does a
like,
cult. Yeah.
yeah. And I think it's very interesting. It's rooted in that like human experience, as like Gene Roddenberry liked to say. So I think like the plot at its core is very strong and very Star Trekky. So I definitely like all those things.
Yeah. Not without its flaws, but we're not really gonna dig into that today.
Right.
'Cause
So, yeah. So we are going to We're going to get to our interview here in just a moment. I wanted to point out that a couple things before we get into it. One is that we did have some audio issues when we were interviewing Laurence. I'm not sure how that happened, but I kind of tried to edit around it a little bit. So there might be like some remnants of it where he might be either really quiet or there was some uh, like static in the background. So just forgive us for that. And the other thing is, I just wanted to give a little bit of a heads up content warning. There is a moment when Laurence is discussing his role in Boys in the Band, and he recalls a story of homophobia, and he uses a slur that was used at him and his castmates. And in the context of the story and the memory, it's a meaningful moment. But we just wanted to express that as a content warning, like that kind of conversation does come up.
thank you for that, Joe.
Yeah. So anyway,
And without further ado, please enjoy our interview with Laurence Luckinbill. Okay, so we are incredibly excited to invite Laurence Luckinbill to the podcast. As we are a Star Trek podcast, we know Laurence from his iconic role as Sybok in Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, but he has an accomplished career in television, film, and theater. He's a Tony-nominated actor, a director, a writer, and an Emmy-winning producer. He has penned and starred in one-man shows centering on the lives of folks like Theodore Roosevelt, Ernest Hemingway, and LBJ. And your new autobiography, Affective Memories, How Chance and the Theater Saved My Life, is currently on shelves. Welcome to Deep Space Love, Laurence.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be anywhere. I'm almost 90.
It's an amazing life.
Yes, absolutely. Quite the resume that we get to read out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the book is it's a lovely book. We got our copy right here. It's been fun to peruse through.
Yes, I hope you do read it all. Every word. Every word.
Yes, every word of it. Yeah.
It's readable.
Yeah, it is. It's like kind of like bite-sized like snapshots of things.
My wife Lucy made the best comment of all after we submitted it finally. She said it's a good read, and that's true.
All right. So I love asking this to actors who've made the jump between stage and film, and you've done writing and directing also. But what do you find are some of the biggest differences between those mediums? And do you find yourself more drawn to one over the other?
The stage. When I grew up, I was in the Ozarks in Arkansas, and there was nothing. There was no culture to speak of. Well, there was culture, but it wasn't anything to do with self-expression, other than at 6 o'clock, everybody came out on their porch and with their banjo and began to play something, which was nice. Or they made quilts and things like that. But other than that, they were farmers and workers, and my parents were as well, were just working there. My father ran a hardware store in Harrison, Arkansas. I was born in Fort Smith, which is on the river, on the Arkansas River, between Oklahoma and Arkansas, and so that was where I spent a lot of my time too. And really, from a very, very young age, I would say maybe 7, I began to wonder what was out there other than what I could see and feel. And I knew there had to be something finer, something higher, something better. And I didn't know what it was. And I dealt with that by becoming a class clown and sort of self-styled slacker in school, because I wasn't interested in all that stuff. I was interested in my imagination and the imagination I found in books. And it was also dangerous because as a strict Roman Catholic, there were a lot of things in books that contradicted what I was being taught. Like, for instance, God being a punishing God, or was he a little more kind than that? And so that was my growing up, and it was confused. My family was dysfunctional severely, and I had siblings, and we, the siblings, were struggling with that for a long time. So that is something that actually is probably a boon in a strange way to people who are going to become artists in some way, because it gives you what I call affective memories to use when you are trying to describe what life is worth and how about this and how about that. And it's also a term that was created by Stanislavski, the Russian theatrical director, who basically is the source of the method that the actors use. Affective memories are things that you remember from your life that were traumatic or very difficult or wonderful and joyful, and they can be applied to analogize into a character that you're playing. You use your own emotional memories to align with the character if you can, and that gives you something called subtext, which is which you maybe have heard about. But anyway, that's a very quick précis of my entire life.
Thank you. Yeah. I wanted to ask a little bit about one of your roles in particular, The Boys in the Band.
Right.
Which you were in both the stage production and the film. And the film, which came out in 1970, is directed by William Friedkin, considered one of the first major movies centering on gay characters. I like freaking. I kind of delve into horror stuff a lot, so I like The Exorcist.
Right.
But yeah, I was just kind of curious. Would you be willing to share a bit about what it was like to work with him as a director, and then just how important this movie was from like a progressive social perspective? Like your thoughts on maybe being part of that as a stage and film production.
When I said yes to it, it was 1967, and there was something in place in the world at that time. It's still there, but it's much less powerful, and it was called the closet. And gay people lived in the closet, locked in by society, and a lot of their particular affects were because of that, the way they lived, and they were a very tight group of men and women who were not allowed to be who they were in actual society. And in Arkansas in particular, or any southern state, it might have meant your life to peek out of the closet. So along came this play, and when I was at Catholic University as a graduate student, I met Mart Crowley, who wrote it. And Mart was an undergraduate who liked to be across the street from the main stage where we Broadway-bound actors were working, to the Lab Theater, which was the old ancient theater that had been there. And he was someone who could make magic out of rags and bones. It was kind of a storage house for the old sets and so on. And so I never did a play with him, but I was very interested in this young man who was also a Southern boy like me. We Southerners shared secrets that nobody else knew. We knew what it was like. We knew what it was like to live in a divided society with black people over there and completely under our thumbs, et cetera, et cetera. And it was, of course, I was already in rebellion. I was in rebellion against my dysfunctional father, and I was an anti-authoritarian, and therefore that becomes a political stance.
Mhm.
Anyway, Mart brought this play to me. He was broke, dead broke, and he said he was hoping that someone would take it seriously. Here's a play about 9 gay men having a birthday party, and it was really an extremely workable, usable comedy, but also tragic. It had everything in it: sadism, masochism, love, joy, laughter, tears, and et cetera, et cetera. So I decided. I mean, he came to me and he said, "Would you please read it?" And I said, "I've read it already. I had read it the night before." And I said, "I will do this play, Mike." And he almost cried, but he was a tough guy, so he didn't. But the play went on. The next day, I told my agent in New York that I was going to do this, and she said, "All right, fine, go ahead and do it, but it's probably the end of your career, and your career is just starting." So that was a nice, fresh way to approach a play. Anyway, I took the part. The part I took was of Mr. Square, who was that's not his name, but he was Squaresville, and he was a teacher. He was a high school teacher who also taught, who coached the basketball team, and he had fallen in love with this young man who in the play is now challenging him to live in a menage. And so there's a terrible fight over it. And because my character was very stable, he was a stable fellow. He had 2 children. He had divorced his wife and all of this and suffered from that. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, that it was taking the part was considered by the people outside of the play situation as that I was very heroic in doing this. But the truth was that the men who outed themselves, the other 7, there were 9 people, there were 2 of us that were straight. And the people who outed themselves suffered the most. I actually got a movie career out of it from Billy's picture, but many of them went on to obscurity, and one of them died in Rikers Island in jail, and so it was a crazy time. It was lots of drugs, lots of everything, bad for you, and bad for society. That was just beginning to rip and tear the fabric of society. Anyway, that play was a smash hit. Everybody wanted to see it. All the straight people were, what are these gay people doing? How come they're doing what they're doing? You know? And I mean, I remember I had been a stage carpenter and I drilled a hole in the set so that we could see the center of the theater, which was the 6th row, and all the people that got in to see that. I remember seeing Jackie Kennedy, Groucho Marx, and then one night, my parents had come to town, to New York, and they were from Arkansas, so they were mystified and crazed a little bit by New York City, which was by now my hometown. And so there are great stories in the book, and one of them is that what the outflow from walking away from the theater with my parents that night after they had seen the show, and the surprises that came from that. When you think your parents are one thing, and then you find out there's something else, and it was a very happy experience actually. So that was the voice of the band. The movie came along, and Mart was offered $250,000 in 1968 to if he would sell the play, to sell it to the movies, and but the only word was you have to fire these 9 faggots and hire Hollywood actors. And of course, those of us in the play started to laugh a lot because Hollywood, Hollywood straight. There's a lot of stuff going on there. Anyway, the movie was made. Billy was hired. This was before The Exorcist, before French Connection. And Billy's career was not going great, but he took a chance too. He took a chance on this play. If it didn't go well, it would be one more sort of failure, not working, not selling tickets, and Billy would be set back very strongly. But he had the courage to take the directing job. Now we had done the play already. This cast had done the play for 2 years, and we knew what we were doing. And so Billy's job was to take what we knew that we were doing and turn it into movie scenes. And as you know, movies are usually filmed not in sequence. But Billy said this one will be filmed in sequence because that's the way they did the play, and that's how we're going to do it, which costs more money, but he did it that way. And so he took a chance right there. And what I learned from Billy Friedkin was, first of all, he was a tough guy from Chicago, loved to smoke cigars and all of this stuff, and that was his persona. But inside, he was a very tender gentleman, and he became a really good friend of mine. And he broke the movie, the play, into tiny parts, and filmed it in sequence. But when you're on stage, there were 9 of us. You could when the audience can see every person, and they're all of their reactions. Now you divide that up into to close-ups, and how do you keep the timbre of the play and tell the story? But he succeeded brilliantly at that, and his ideas were great, and he was tricky, like a lot of directors are, like the Kazan and the others who tell the actors the whispers in their ear, do this before the guy that you're going to talk to is going to say his next line, and see what happens. And so that kind of method acting was Billy was cognizant with, and he would tell people things, but his little whispers in your ear were always very good, I thought. And so he was a Chicago boy. He was a tough guy, and he's gone, and I'm very sorry about that. I miss him.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for sharing. So pivoting to Star Trek again. So Star Trek has a storied history of attracting stage actors. For minor examples, William Shatner, George Takei, Patrick Stewart, Kate Mulgrew, David Warner, etc. And more recently, Anthony Rapp on Star Trek Discovery, who previously starred in Broadway's production of Rent. What do you think about how a background on stage might lend itself to acting in sci-fi or a space opera show or movie?
Well, I think that the stage gives you scope as an actor. You can be bigger, and a lot of the characters, most of the characters in Star Trek were big, and they were the imagination of Gene Roddenberry, who was an absolutely interesting man. And I wonder these days what Gene Roddenberry would think about gravitational waves and dark energy as opposed to dark matter, which is one's pushing and one's pulling in the universe. Is it expanding, or is it staying together, or is it alternating? The things that are going on now, that from the telescopes that are being put out there, are telling us very interesting things about space that were not known then. And I mean, it's a very interesting thing to me that the whole idea of Star Trek and Roddenberry's addition to creation of it was that Roddenberry was interested in human relations. And so all of the stories are about human relations, about what do you do when you meet someone or something that is so different from you. It's about the other. It's always about the other. And that's what happens to be the big struggle right now in America. What's going to happen if we cannot deal with the other in a rational and a heartfelt way? Am I wrong?
You're not wrong.
Yeah, and so I think, for instance, I have to say this, that I think the new movies we made. I guess mine was the fifth movie.
Yep.
It was the final one, of course, but there was another one.
Yeah.
I think there are 6 movies, and then there's a lot of series following it. And then the new movies with Chris Pine and the others, and a third character called CGI, were not the same. They were more like Star Wars. It's all action. There's fights in the air. All that baloney to me was baloney. I tried to watch them, and I thought, wow, you're standing on the wing of something and you're going at warp speed. How does that work? So it was like superhero stuff, you know, and that's not what Roddenberry was considering as the spine of his story. And so that's where I kind of lost interest in the whole Star Trek thing. But then I was just on stage in Vegas this past weekend, and I found that the people out there, the fans who come in massive numbers, that's what they want to. There were so many highly intelligent people that came up to me. I'm signing photographs and my book. Hey,
Yeah.
and those people were interested in stories as well because it's our lives,
Hmm.
you know, it's
Yeah.
how we live, and so how do you live in the enterprise in these days with all that's going on?
Ripe for lots of new stories for sure. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, one thing I saw an interview you did recently. I think it was with Screen Rant, and I read about it in your book a little bit. It's talked about a lot that your wife Lucy Arnaz is the daughter of actors Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. And I know you've written and spoken about like you have this connection to Star Trek. Lucille Ball has that connection to Star Trek. But for our listeners, perhaps maybe who haven't quite read the book, could you give a little preview of maybe what your relationship might have been with Lucille Ball, or did Star Trek come up?
It's in the book,
Yes.
and if you want to read about it, it's very interesting and funny, and not so funny.
Yeah.
And just to put in a plug for my wife. My wife is a great artist in her own right. She's a singer, and she is does concerts now, and she is the one singer that I know about in today's world who tells the story of the song in so powerful a way and so simple a way that you are not just listening to a song, but you're hearing a whole story. And so let's put to rest daughter of and make it great artist.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I agree. Let's do that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There are scenes in the book about my relationship with Big Red, as we called her. That's Lucy. Uh, um, I don't think I want to tell the actual book stories
Right. Yeah.
because I'm I'm very happy with the way I described things. It took me.
Okay.
I'll just say this about the book. It took me 10 years to write, and it tore me up. Uh, and the reason I ended up writing it was because I used to tell stories to my children, uh, and uh, I created this whole mad, insane world that they love to hear. But the one who liked to hear it the most was the youngest, and that was my daughter. And at night, I was going to say goodnight to her, and she would say, tell me the rest of the story, Daddy. What happens? What happened next?" And so I would have to sit on a very uncomfortable bed. And she had one of those wonderful iron beds. It was great for her, but to sit on the edge was kind of awful. And tell and invent some new addition to the story. So and then she said to me, uh, we know a lot about Mom's family, but we don't know anything about yours.
Yeah.
So please tell us. And so when I started to write it, it was for that purpose, but it became a deep struggle in my
Hmm.
soul to tell the absolute truth. And that's what I did. I had, well, what's the point of writing an autobiography that where you lie about your own life? That's really wrong. And so I learned a lot of things about myself I didn't like, and I learned over time with when I met my dear wife. Uh, I was 45 years old. She was 28, and that doesn't sound pretty good. I mean, that doesn't sound like it's going to work. But here we are, 45 years later, still kicking and still working, and it's still a great loving marriage. And that happened to me in the middle of my life. And the upshot of my relationship with Lucille was that Lucille did not get me. She didn't like me. She didn't like me for her daughter because I had two sons already, and I was, an old guy. And so she had that struggle in her soul to try to figure out what was best for her daughter, and her daughter knew what she was doing, and so she had struggles with her mother over the marriage, and I won't go into any more than that, but it got to be a little difficult, and on her deathbed, there was a scene where she spoke to me, and that's I don't think I wrote that, but that's for Lucy to write.
Mm-hmm.
She does her book. I hope she's going to do a book.
We'd love that.
Yeah. But I found I admired Lucille Ball. Lucille Ball had grown up sort of like I did in upstate New York, a very place lacking in the kind of culture that is artistically worthwhile. And she struggled as a showgirl, as a model, as a showgirl, and gradually, made a career pretty much the way I did. It took me 11 years living in New York to get anywhere. When I came there, I had $5 in my pocket, and I did all kinds of things, substitute taught, teaching, and all that, and I made handmade chess sets, which I sold, and
That's awesome.
yeah,
That's
all
cool.
all kinds of stuff that you do. And I lived out of boxes with string tied up, and on people's couches and on borrowed apartments for 11 years, while I'm struggling to become a known actor. And I actually, the boys in the band finally did that for me. By that time I had done quite a few jobs. I worked for John Lithgow's daddy, Arthur Lithgow,
Oh,
Wow.
in Midwest at the Great Lakes Shakespeare Festival. I did all those kind of things. I worked at Princeton in the McCarter Theater, which was where Jimmy Stewart and Henry Fonda had gotten their start,
wow.
and had done Shakespeare there, and all kinds of classics. And I studied the classics at Catholic University, so I was the kind of actor who knew who Prometheus was,
Mhm.
and not somebody who just went to Hollywood. I didn't go to Hollywood because first of all, when I was a kid, I was skinny and tall, and I was a nerd, and I was also as I said, a class clown. So I didn't think I had anything to offer to Hollywood. I was scared of Hollywood. And I went to movies in my town and was like, what? What are they doing up there? Who are these incredible people? They're gods and goddesses,
Mhm.
As life went on, the and the boys in the band came up, and suddenly I'm in the movies, and from that I got other movies, and I had this big long career in Hollywood.
Um, so in the book, you do mention that you didn't have a lot of exposure to Star Trek prior to acting in Star Trek V, but you were approached for the role of Sybok after William Shatner saw your one-man show performance as Lyndon B. Johnson. Could you share a bit more about those early meetings with Shatner, Harv Bennett, and Leonard Nimoy, and how those went?
Okay, all right. I was very I was shocked when I drove up to Paramount Gate, and I was used to being challenged by the guard. What are you doing here? Why you want to drive in our lot? And before I even got to the gate, a golf cart came out, and the guy said, "Mr. Luckinbill, leave your car there. I will park it for you, and jump in the golf cart. I want to take you to visit the bungalow where the folks are waiting for you." What? Oh my God! Oh, and so I get on this golf cart and we ride over there. And I've done a bunch of movies by then, but nothing that came over the counter like that just easily. So we got to the bungalow and I went inside, and to my surprise, everyone stood up. What? What do they want from me? They're standing up, and then they shook hands with me. Wow, this was so. I mean, this is unusual. And we sat down and began to speak. And Bill said, "Well, I saw you. I saw you play Lyndon. I was somewhere in some hotel on a Sunday night and had nothing to do, so I watched the PBS thing. And you were great, and as Lyndon, and I want you for Sybok." And the producer said, "Well, uh, Larry, maybe if you would like to read the script, and we can have some discussions about it." And Bill said yes. And so it seemed pretty strong that Bill wanted me. And I took the script home and read it that night, called at 8 o'clock in the morning and said, I love this character, this guy, and I want to be in this movie. So I was. So Bill said, okay, well, we have to have a conversation about how you see the part and all of that. So we'll have that conversation. So weeks passed, and in preparation for knowing that I was going to do this, I called Tom Cruise and asked him for his trainer. I'd done a movie with Tom, and so I said, I'm going to get in shape. I wanted to get in Cracker Jack's shape to play Sybok. And so he sent me his trainer, who was a football player he was a Sooner from Oklahoma. And this kid took me through it. Oh my God, 3 hours a day for 3 weeks. And I was in super good shape. I was unbelievably powerful. And so anyway, so I went down to he called me and said, well, we can't do lunch. How about I meet you at the orange juice stand in Santa Monica, and, uh, and we'll have a juice, and you'll tell me what you think about the part. And so that was how we discussed what I was going to do in the movie. And he said, "Well, how do you see Sybok?" And I said, "Lenin." And he said, "John?" And I said, "No, Vladimir Ilyich." He said, "The Russian?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, what, why?" And I said, "Well, Bill, uh, Lenin started out to free the serfs in Russia. He started out on a good note to try to make freedom happen in Russia. But of course, he hit all kinds of obstacles. And as he hit the obstacles, he became more and more of a dictator." I said, Sybok started out as an anti-authoritarian in his own family, and he came upon this belief that there is that he has this strange power, and how that power grew, I don't know. That is not given in the script. It's not given any places that I know about. But the power to take people's pain away. And Bill said, "Well, that's all right. That's good. I just don't say anything about this Lenin thing because we're not making a movie about commies here." So that's how that happened.
That's great. I love that story. So Star Trek 5, it sounds like, was unfortunately like hit with a lot of budget cuts, and like there were some, which led to like effects shortfalls. Unfortunately, there's parts cut out. Like I know there's kind of this legend of like the rock monster scene that was cut out, which I would love to see, honestly. But is there much that you think about of, parts that were cut that you would think, oh, that would have been great if that was able to stay in, or like this added more depth to something that something that if you revisit the film, you're like, I wish that was still in there?
Yes. Well, what could have is the could have been and isn't is the Hollywood story.
True. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think were dealing with an interest in what is it, Indiana Jones, which was coming in, and it was bigger stuff. I don't agree with that, of course, and I do think that the fact that the special effects in post production were not good, and they were. I knew the people in New York who they hired to do them, and they were very simple special effects, and they were effective enough, but it didn't seem to be the climax of a movie. But here's my take on the movie. It's a very sweet movie, and it starts with the two guys bickering over El Capitan in Yosemite, and it ends with row, row, row your boat merrily down the stream. And it's a sweet movie about partnerships and friendships that last throughout life and throughout space. And my only wish is that somehow Sybok could have been there singing that song with him.
Yes, I agree with you. I think that when we just rewatched the movie, I think over the last 2 nights, actually split it up because we have young kids. So, but it has some of the best character moments. I think like some of those early moments, like you said, with El Capitan, or like the moments between Kirk and Bones and Spock are just really powerful. And even just like the moments with Spock and Sybok, I think that it's really fun to see your performance. And I think that, that confidence that you had with Sybok and that heel turn at the end, like confrontation with what they think is God, and it turns out to be an entity like that, like, oh my God, what have I done? Like those moments, like you said, like he doesn't see himself as the villain, right? He thinks he's doing the right thing, and then he's like, no, I didn't. Oh no. Like it's just like you said, it's a very powerful like story to see played out. And I think I appreciate that element is like this kind of antagonistic character in it.
I was sorry that the internet took off on Bill, and a lot of comments were made.
Yeah,
I disagree totally with all those folks. They have their opinions, but they're not justified in this case. Bill was a good director, and Bill made some camera moves that were really pretty good, spectacular, and he was under enormous pressure because of the money factor during the film, and it wasn't fair to him. But I loved the scenes with him and with. Well, we had a little struggle over the rock gun. I said to him, do you think it's logical for Sybok to have a gun and want to shoot somebody? Yeah, that's not right. Anyway, when it came time for the scene with DeForest, DeForest was again a Southern boy like me. Mm-hmm. We shared certain memories in your head that you know what life is like there, and he had gone through the Hollywood mill. He had been a cowboy guy and all of that stuff that was offered to me too, but I hate horses. That was never going to work for me. But anyway, DeForest and I were connected somehow. So when it came time to do that scene, I tell you, looking in his eyes, a man who knew he was going to die, and soon, that was a real moment. Mm-hmm. That was as real as it gets in movies. And I absolutely love that man because he and I connected. And then the scene fairly soon after that was the scene with Bill, where he looked at me and he says, "You are mad." And here's my thing: when you can think on camera as the character, actually think as the character, not as Larry, you are really in it. And that moment was a true moment. And my kids love that moment. They talk about it all the time. My kids are grown up, big people now, and but they all like that movie. And when I was at Vegas this past weekend, I was surrounded by my posse of family, which is oh my God, that's so beautiful. You guys have two children. My uh, second son with Lucy has two children, and my daughter has one. So I got three grandchildren, and that's a great thing. It was so wonderful to have my family around me. You see this bandage? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's one of about four that I've just taken off. I was climbing the stairs in the dark backstage to go out and speak, and I got to the top step, and I'm using a cane now, and I had to struggle to get up to that top step. And as I did, both hands on the rail, I was stabbed by chicken wire. It
Oh,
was
Oh my gosh.
against the wall for some reason. I don't know.
oh,
It hurt
Ouch.
like heck, and so I'm bleeding now.
Oh my
My
gosh.
daughter was right next to me, reaching in her purse, her kit, and had two band-aids, bang, bang, bang. So she put those on. But there was another one bleeding like hell. So I hear my name and I go out, sit down, and then a medic comes out and starts to put a band-aid on. I'm talking with a microphone, but there's somebody else who got my other hand. And the other thing I have to say is I had I was in one room. I was in the DeForest room
Mm.
of the hotel, the convention center, and that it just happened that Bill was in the next room. In about 45 minutes after I started, he came on the way in to the DeForest room. We noticed that there was a line about 5,000 miles long waiting for Bill.
Wow.
That's counter programming. Sybok against Bill. So I had a far fewer folks coming to visit me, but plenty of them did, and I'm happy about that because I don't love conventions. I don't love the brouhaha, all that
Mhm.
stuff, and I didn't want to charge people for pictures, but I was coerced into doing it, and and I did charge for my book, but so and and the comments I got from people were very, very happy making for a man of my age and my long life.
yeah, that's nice to hear. You kind of, so actually you kind of answered a few of our other questions, just talking about your
Yeah.
experience in the convention and experience like with just on set with the themes that you were attracted to. It sounds like with your book, you kind of were drawn back into the convention world a little bit, but have you had much else experience with Star Trek as a fandom? Like, was your book kind of like your point coming back into it a little bit, or had you been kind of like, keeping up with it, or like, had you gone to conventions before this?
I went to one in Vegas before at Caesar's Palace,
Okay.
and I have to say that I was a little bit recalcitrant about that too.
Mm.
But it was even bigger cheese than this one. It was a whole bunch of actors that I was backstage with, and I got paid to do it.
Mm.
And honestly, I didn't need the money, and my my financial guy tells me with a laugh, You're the only person I know who likes to work for nothing better than for salary, which is true. I have the amateur spirit. You know what I'm saying? And anyway, I was at that convention, and I was ready to go down, and yes, they had a contest, a costume contest, and I'm witnessing it, and the Sybok character came out, and he was this tall, skinny guy with my costume on and a great beard and great hair, and I have to say that that was not my hair, and I stood next to this guy. They took pictures, and I said to this guy, "You look better than I do." than I ever did at Sybok. But he wasn't an actor. So uh, anyway, that was nice. And afterwards, 500 people came walking past me, and I'm sitting there, and they're offering pictures to be signed, and I had a handler next to me. Yeah, a handler. I hate the word. And then somebody would come in with two pictures, and I'd say, "Sure, I'll sign." And he said, "No, no, you can't. Just one. Move along." So that's how that was. It's a business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this time, this last weekend, it was much easier because I was in charge of that, and the people came by, and I could sign 16 if I wanted to, and I did. So that's my take on. My father used to say, "I like people up to a point." I say I like people all the way. So that's me.
Well, it sounds like generally your experience with Star Trek fans has been positive.
Oh yes, it has. Oh yeah.
That's good.
I meet people all the time, and both with there are two movies that I've made that I could still watch. I've made about 26 movies, uh, and one is The Boys the Band, and the other one's Star Trek. And
Wow.
when people come up to me about Star Trek, I love it because they remember, and the Star Trek fans are very knowledgeable, and they want to know more about space. They want to know about adventure. They want to know about what happens when people meet people that they don't know what to do with. And that is, to me, really, really exciting. Uh, what I learned from the boys in the band was, and I learned it fairly quickly after the very first workshop, which is that we were doing something that was allowing people to see themselves as they were and allowed, and people watching them who were accepting them as they were, and just not judging them, just thinking these are people who want love, they want security, they want to do their jobs, and they happen to be gay people. And when I walked away from that the very first workshop, and we didn't know that there would be another one, uh, I said to myself, it was so cold in New York that day. It was -6, and I was freezing. But I stopped in the street and I said, "This is social justice. This is social justice. This is the theater. This is my theater." And my eyes were watering, and it wasn't from the cold. So I wiped my eyes, moved on. But the same thing actually applies to Star Trek, in my view. Social justice was done by the active participation of brotherhood and of the active participation of the heroism of a person who now knew he was ordinary, knew he belonged in the human family. So that is Sybok to me. So
That's beautifully said.
Yes, thank you. And speaking as Star Trek fans and the people that we know, we love you. We're so glad that you were part of the franchise and were able to give us that performance. And so thank you so much.
I was just surprised that, and sort of sad that there was no other appearance of Sybok anyplace until now. They've got the new thing.
Yeah, they're teasing it in one of the new shows. So I'm excited to see
I'm
what
very
they
happy
do.
about that. I'm very
Yeah.
glad. They're telling
Exciting.
the story too. Telling the story. I hope to do it right.
Yep.
And, I hope they will.
Legacy will live on. Laurence, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. I don't want to take too much more of your time. And just anyone listening to the podcast, I just want to give a big plug to Affective Memories. Wonderful book. Please check it out. Please get it. We'll put the links in our notes so people can find it easily too. Highly recommended.
Yes. Live long and prosper. That's what I say.
Yes.
And
Same to you.
You too. Good luck with your children. Good luck with your life. And
You
Thank
too.
you.
with your jobs and all of that stuff. It's that's the kind of guy I am. My one of my relatives was one of the first med techs in the business.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's awesome. I used to do that actually.
yeah. And I knew her struggles, and when they tried to form a union and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And as for teaching, it's a good job. I don't care what anybody says. It's as long as they don't make you ban books and all that stuff.
Yeah. Oh,
Minnesota, I know they're not doing that. And you got your snow boots, and you got your toques and everything that you wear in the wintertime.
Yep.
You struggle with the black ice.
Sometimes.
Yeah. We make it work.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice to see you.
Well, thank you so much for listening to our interview. It was a really good one.
Thank you again to Laurence for giving us the honor.
Yeah. And thank you, listeners, for listening to this married Treckle couple.
Did you even do that on purpose?
I did it absolutely on purpose. I looked right at you.
I couldn't. Sometimes I can't tell,
It's going to be a thing now.
even after
I like
12
Treckle.
years of marriage.
Yeah. But yes, no, this was a wonderful interview. I can't thank Laurence enough for taking the time to chat with us. Definitely, if you're interested, check out his book. It's very enlightening. It's a really cool story. Only a little bits about Star Trek, but it's if you're interested in like just like that journey and like the stage experience that he had, like working in the New York theater like community, or like even just breaking into Hollywood a little bit. It's really fascinating stuff.
Yes, please check that out. And if you haven't watched or rewatched Star Trek V: The Final Frontier, give that a watch too sometime soon. Celebrate 35 years. Thank you one last time for joining us again for another episode of Deep Space Love. We really appreciate all of our listeners out there. And until next time, love long and prosper.